We will be live in 2 seconds.
Call our meeting to order for May.
We can't hear you, Chair. You're it's freezing.
People of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Host Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. They're close to this land. The Ottawa Police Services Board honors
Apologize, we're having some technical difficulties. Chair, I don't know if you can hear us, but we're having difficulty hearing you at this time. Krista, I don't know if you've received any messages from the chair.
I have not. I'm going to see if I can get in contact with her.
Okay.
Just waiting to hear back from the chair. So just a few more minutes, please. Okay, the chair has lost her internet connection. So in the interest of time, Vice Chair Fakrani, would you like to assume the chair seat and start the meeting?
Sure, we could start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order for May 29th, 2023. Before proceeding to the agenda, I want to recognize that Ottawa is located on unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Host Nation. The people of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Today, Ottawa is home to approximately 40,000 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Ottawa's Indigenous community is diverse, representing many nations, languages, and customs. The Ottawa Police Services Board honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I'll just give a brief about technical difficulties. We just saw that our chair had some technical difficulties. We are currently broadcasting on Zoom and live streaming on YouTube. Given that this meeting is being held electronically, I want to caution that there is a possibility of technical difficulties, as it's just happened. Should we receive any disruptions, I would ask that everyone remain patient as we work to fix the issue and resume the meeting as soon as possible. I would add that this caution is particularly relevant today, given that the chair is away. Prior to this public meeting, we held our in-camera meeting, and the board discussed two labor relations matter, a legal services status report regarding settlements in the first quarter of 2023, and a delay application. I will now proceed with the confirmation of the agenda. Confirmation of the agenda that the Ottawa Police Services Board confirmed the agenda of 29th May 2023 meeting. Is the agenda confirmed?
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Confirmation of minutes. Minutes number 79 of April 24th, 2023, and minutes 80 of April 28, 2023, that the Ottawa Police Services Board confirm minutes number 79, the 24th April 2023 meeting, and the minutes number 80 of the 28th April 2023 special meeting. Are the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Committee meetings, reports from committee chairs, and minutes. We have at 4.1 Policy and Governance Committee, the draft minutes number 12 of May 1st, 2023. Member Doucette, as chair of the committee, can you please provide a brief overview of what was discussed at this meeting?
Absolutely, and thank you, Salim. The committee met on May 1st to discuss 5 items. The first was a services review of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission call to action. This report was in response to an outstanding board inquiry. We thought that the information in this report was really helpful, and so we had it placed on this evening's agenda for the information of the full board. The second item we discussed was a process around strategic planning. There is a report this evening that reflects the input we provided at the committee level. Next was a discussion on a review of the board's financial accountabilities procedures manual. This review will be completed before the end of the year and brought back to committee as well as to the board. Our second to last item was a discussion on the draft board work plan that will take us until the end of the year. This too is before the board this evening for approval. And finally, we had a brief discussion around the pre-scheduling of the board's committees meetings for the year in order to help the board stay on track of its work plan. There's a report this evening to finalize the membership of the committees, and the board office will be in a position to start pre-scheduling the meetings once it's completed. That was those were the items that we discussed at the Policy and Governance meeting on the 1st of May.
Thank you. I see Member Curry has her hand up. Member Curry.
Yeah, so I have a question that's, I think, a fairly quick question on this. I don't want to, you're going to go through and ask us if we're going to hold these reports. And I just have a quick question on that. So we can either hold it if you like, or I can just ask my quick question, whatever you prefer.
Why don't you ask your quick question?
All right, I was just going to ask in the minutes there, it talks about the course, multi-module course called The Path. And I was just going to ask staff, whoever would be able to explain that, if it is just a cultural awareness type of course, or what is it, the 5 courses that are referred to as The Path?
The chief, can we turn it to someone from your area?
Tricia, you're aware, I think, of that course a little bit more detail than anyone.
Yes, I can take that. Thank you for the question, Member Curry. And through you, Chair, the PATH is it is a series of modules, and yes, it's about cultural awareness and history of the Indigenous persons in Canada. some of the factors that have, the residential schools, the culling of dogs up in the north, a lot of the issues that have led to, some of the situations that we're seeing today. And so it really is more of I think, a cultural awareness and some key awareness of the history of Indigenous folks.
Great. And just a very quick follow-up, and the reaction to that, people appreciated it, liked it, enjoy it, glad that it's being offered?
It was very well received by our members. I don't know what our compliance rate is, but I think we are, we're high 90s. And, most of the people who have taken it had learned a great deal over the course of it, things that they had no idea about. So I think it was really well received, and a lot of conversation that generated after.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I was glad to see that in there. And that was sort of as a follow-up to a motion that we had seen on our agenda and sent over to Policy and Governance. So I was glad to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else, Member Doucette, to add, or are we good?
No, I think we're good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so if I can, is this item received?
Received.
Received.
Great, thank you. We'll move now to the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, having none, we would go to public delegations. Today, we do not have any public delegations to speak today. However, I think it's important to note the chair has been meeting with community members and is eager to meet with community members over the course of the summer. So we will continue to offer different opportunities for the chair and other board members to engage with community members, as well as having our public delegations. Item number 7, inquiries. Are there any inquiries? Seeing none. Now we'll move to the items of business, and we will ask whether we want to hold or carry or receive some items. The chair's verbal report, we'll just hold this to see if the chair does come back, is able to come back online. So we will hold that. The chief's verbal report, we will hold that item as well. 8.3, board committee appointments. That the Ottawa Police Service Board approve the appointment of Peter Henschel to the Human Resource Committee and Gail Beck to the Finance and Audit Committee, as well as the Thomas G. Flanagan Scholarship Award Selection Committee. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. The next item we have is Ottawa Police Services Board Work Plan 2023, and I would like to hold that. So let's hold that. 8.5 is the Canadian Association of Police Governance Conference attendees and sponsorship. This is that the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the attendance of Gail Beck, Salim Fakarani, and Krista Ferrero at the 2023 Canadian Association of Police Governance Conference being held in St. John's, Newfoundland from August 16th to the 18th, 2023. And number 2, a $1,000 friend sponsorship for the Canadian Association of Police Governance 2023 Annual Conference. Is this item carried?
Carried.
8.6 is the request to host the OAPSB Zone 2 meeting in November 2024. And here it is that the Ottawa Police Services Board approved hosting the OAPSB Zone 2 meeting in November 2024. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Then we have 8.7, strategic plan development, consultation strategy, and planning process.
I'd like to hold that.
Okay. Eight 8.8 is the ceramic armored plate life cycle replacement. And here that the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the procurement of 784 ceramic armored plates from Pacific Safety Products, Inc. in the amount of $327,947.20 exclusive of HST to support the replacement and life cycling of existing plates to set to expire in the fall and into Q1 2024. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Appointments of Special Constable Carleton University. That the Ottawa Police Services Board approved the appointment of Carleton University employee listed in document 1 as special constable pursuant to section 53 of the Police Services Act in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment form. Is this item carried?
Carried.
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 8.10, appointment and reappointment of special constables, Ottawa Police Service. That the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the appointment of Ottawa Police Service employee listed in document 1 and the reappointment of Ottawa Police Service employees in document 2 as special constables pursuant to section 53 of the Police Services Act in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment forms. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
8.11, reappointment of Special Constable, Ottawa Police Service Supervisor Criminal Intelligence. That the Ottawa Police Service Board approved the reappointment of Ottawa Police Service employee listed in document 1 as special constable pursuant to section 53 of the Police Services Act in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the attached approval of appointment form. Is this item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
8.12 is a presentation on hate crime and race-based data collection, and we will hold that presentation. And 8.13 is the Safe Workplace Program. We will also hold that as it is a presentation. 8.14 is the response to inquiry 1-21-20 OPS's review of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action.
I'd like to hold that, please.
8.15 is the 2024 budget activities and timetable. Sorry, Krista, I see your hand is up. Sorry if I missed it earlier.
Yes, so the service just needs to provide a clarifying point on this item. So I'm not sure if any board members are planning to hold it, but if it's not going to be held, there's just a comment that needs to be made by the
Oh,
service.
I was going to hold it.
Yeah, the budget we're holding.
So
Yeah.
8.15. So 8.15 is held, correct, Kathy? Member Curry, sorry. 8.16, positive workplace annual report. Do we want to hold this? Okay, so I'm just going to read it, that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Received.
Okay, 8.17 is the Workplace Accidents and Injuries Annual Report 2022.
I would like to hold that, please.
8.18 is the Performance Report First Quarter 2023.
I would like to hold that, please.
Oh.
8.19, report on the SIU investigation. So if that the Ottawa Police Board received this report for information, is this item received?
Received.
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 8.20 is the Legal Services Report, First Quarter 2023. And this is Okay, I'm just going to read it. If no one wants to hold it, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Outstanding board inquiries and motions, May 2023. That the Ottawa Police Service Board received this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
And the last is the letters of commendation, May 2023. I know we've held them last time just to have the chief talk about a couple of them. Do we want to hold it again?
Yes,
I think
hold them, please.
Okay.
Happy to hold them. I just wondering if the chief would do them at the beginning, maybe.
Chief, any comments? Would you like to do them?
You can, anytime we can do
So,
it. Sure.
how about we do it as part of your verbal report, Chief? Does that work?
Sure, that sounds good. I actually, just for switching up a little bit, Deputy Chief Burnett was going to do the majority of them this time around. So at the end of my report, I'll pass them over to him.
Okay, great. Is there any other business? Wait, hold on. Before we get there, we're all okay for the agenda items. So right now we would normally go with the chair's report. She's still not online. So why don't we actually just turn over to the chief's verbal report then? So over to you, Chief Stubbs.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I want to start my verbal report by speaking about the tragic death of Ontario Provincial Police Sergeant Eric Mueller. It's clear that Sergeant Mueller was an outstanding officer and a dedicated family man, leaving behind a wife and 2 children under 2 years old. This was a devastating event for the OPP and the police industry across Canada. We are also thinking about the 2 other officers that were shot, and in particular, the 1 constable who is still in serious condition. I was proud of the almost 300 serving and retired Ottawa Police Service members who marched in the parade at the Canadian Tire Centre prior to the funeral. As well, we worked very closely with the OPP to provide security for the event, and I again want to thank our planning and logistics team for the many extra hours worked to ensure this funeral was safe for everyone. The team at OPS really stepped up to assist the OPP. That included being involved in the initial response after the shooting, maintaining the scene for numerous days, and assisting with the criminal code investigation of this homicide. Since September of last year, we have lost 10 officers, half of those in Ontario alone. Each officer leaves behind family, colleagues, and friends who loved them. And just today, we are learning of a detective from the OPP that was driving an unmarked police vehicle outside of Woodstock, Ontario. He's been killed in a car accident involved with a school bus. And I'm told with no children inside, but the bus, but unfortunately, the driver is also deceased. I was dismayed to read a national media article that had local academics cite that some police leaders' comments following the death of Sergeant Mueller, that the level of officers being killed is in fact not unprecedented. The article pointed out that it was worse in 1962. And in addition, there were less officers working during this time, which makes the per capita of police killings even higher during the 1960s. You know, look, these deaths are not just statistics. They are real people with real families, with officers who put themselves in danger every day they go to work. The citizens of Ottawa, they need to know that they have hundreds of dedicated police officers that are working day and night in this community, keeping you safe. That they are, despite what's occurred since September, continuing to respond to call after call with the unknown of what might occur when they arrive at a scene. It's why it's very difficult to accept anyone's attempt to minimize what has occurred since September within the police industry across Canada. It is an unprecedented loss of police officers in the careers of anyone who is a serving officer today. I would like to take a moment to discuss the ongoing debate of police and uniforms in our city schools. During my career, I can tell you I have both participated and have witnessed the positive benefits of police officers' presence in schools and the valuable relationships that we can build with both the youth and the school administrators. Simply managing any policing issues within a school will have a higher probability of a successful outcome if relationships are already established before we attend a school. I appreciated the letter from the Education Minister to the chairs of the Ontario school boards outlining the fact that police are welcome in our schools to participate in their child's education and school experience. But I am looking forward to continued discussions with the Ottawa Carleton District School Board to build a positive relationship, not only with the board, but with the hundreds of schools in our community. We celebrated another Police Week on May 14th to the 20th, and it was a great chance to reconnect with residents from the National Capital Region. This year's theme was Building Bridges, celebrating police community partnerships, which recognizes the importance of citizens participating in the development of public safety measures. And there is more emphasis this year on public partnerships as we work with the police board to develop a refreshed strategic plan for the OPS. And as we'll see later in the agenda, we will be launching a joint consultative plan to ensure we are hearing from the community. At the various Police Week events, there was a great turnout. We had a lot of parents bringing their kids to the family-friendly events, watching them run through our police cars or play a game of basketball with our OPS Hoop Stars. And I really want to thank our community policing officers who organized many of the events and helped to share a bit of what we do as a police service. And I hope you had a chance to attend, grab a bite to eat, and chat with our officers. Now to a few operational issues. Congratulations to all the runners who participated in the Tamarack race weekend. The Ottawa Police, we were pleased to be there to assist organizers with the public safety preparations. Planning for this event started last fall and continued right up until the race weekend. We had 60 members deployed on Saturday and 100 on Sunday. And it's a great example of the level of advanced planning we need to do for any of our major public events in the city. And I'm grateful for the expertise and teamwork of our special events unit. We worked with race organizers as well as our policing and city partners, including traffic management, to ensure the flow of traffic and the safety of everyone who had attended the events. The organizers and the volunteers should all take a bow for a well-run event that showcased our community. Again, on awesome operations, we are seeing a troubling trend surrounding an uptick in arsons in the city. Year over year, there have been a 50% increase in the number of calls for service related to fires being set at residential or business buildings. A number of these incidents are occurring in the Rideau-Vanier ward, with 21 fires set in 2023. So we're working with Councillor Stephanie Plante to implement mediation measures and proactive patrols. For reference, the Rideau-Vanier had 33 arsons for all of 2021, 25 in 2020, and 10 in 2019. So we are certainly on a trend to exceed those numbers this year. We're also seeing arsons in the Rideau Rockcliffe area with 7 incidents, and the Kitchissippi and Osgood wards with 5 each. So we're working with the councillors in those areas as well. I can tell you we have a small but mighty arson unit that are extremely busy, and I want to acknowledge their incredible efforts in managing these investigations. As well, we value the relationships we have with the Ottawa Fire Services, the Office of the Fire Marshal, and the Office of the Chief Coroner in advancing these really complex investigations. We are asking the public to come forward with any information they may have that will help to identify those responsible. I do want to mention a few disturbances we've seen at local parks and beaches in the month of May. This is often a common occurrence in the summer, and they can sometimes become unruly. Earlier this month at Britannia Beach, we responded to a large party and a fight club that was occurring. This past Saturday, our officers again responded to a call for service related to a large and loud crowd, this time at Mooney's Bay. The crowd began to disperse when we arrived. The officers began to check the entire area and encountered 2 young men fighting. They attempted to intervene. One of the men fled on foot. When the officers ran after him and arrested him, he kicked at them and was discovered to be carrying a machete. He is now facing criminal charges. We are working with the local community councillors in the city to address this issue, but if it continues, it's a matter of time when a more tragic result will occur if these fights and this type of theme continues in the beaches and parks. In respect to gun violence, we continue to receive reports across the city. To date, in 2023, we have had 21 shootings citywide, with 2 people killed due to the gun violence. Our Guns and Gangs unit continues to investigate these, as well as the homicide unit. They have seized 21 illegal firearms so far this year. Last year, we recovered 107 illegal guns. And our homicide unit responded to 5 different deaths as a result of the gun violence, with a 100% solvency rate. I'd like to end this portion of my verbal report by talking about the massive food drive event in May that was organized by the good people at the Khalsa Aid and Ottawa Sikh Society. About 20 of our members, including those from our Diversity Relations and Resource section, were involved in gathering over 40,000 pounds of food. And I'm told it was one of the biggest community-led single-day food drive campaigns in the city. That's absolutely incredible, and it will certainly help to reach so many people in need in our city. Our 20 members were amongst the over 300 people that volunteered that day during this event. And it's in the true spirit of community and embraces the Sikh principle of seva, or giving selfless aid and service of others. I want to thank everyone who's involved in this community event, which is a testament to the fact that when we work together, we can accomplish some pretty amazing things. As discussed, we are going to bump the letter of accommodations up to the end of my verbal report. I usually talk about this, but Acting Deputy Chief Burnett is going to take over this portion of the verbal report. Paul.
Thank you, Chief. Now, I know everyone has probably read all of these, but I do want to highlight just a few of these commendations that we've received that really highlight the level of work that our men and women are doing out there. This particular commendation was received from the member of the public on the 19th of April. I want to thank Constable Luc Plante for how absolutely kind and wonderful he was during an unfortunate situation involving both myself and my child over the weekend. My son is autistic, and the police needed to be called while I was out of town. I'm so appreciative of his kindness. I really wanted to commend him and have his supervisor know about it. I also needed support in that situation, and he was great, and he followed up with me after. Another commendation received by a member of the public relates to Constable Kevin Williams. I wanted to thank Constable Kevin Williams for his incredible service to our family. Our son was working in Ottawa. We live outside of Ottawa, and was killed in a car accident. Constable Williams has been so compassionate to our family and always answered our constant ongoing calls and questions. I was not able to get to Ottawa to pick up his belongings. Constable Williams had them couriered to me. What an incredible man and asset to Ottawa Police. Thank you so much, Kevin. And here's one that you don't often hear. Usually we're giving out tickets, but in this particular case, I'd like to say thank you to 2 officers who woke me up. I fell asleep inside my car. They were very professional. A sense of community was felt there. Anyways, keep safe out there. It's a dangerous job, and I admire you and your guys for what you do. Thank you. That's just a couple of the commendations that we received on a daily basis, and I'm sure you get them and read through them, but you can certainly relate to some of the accolades that our members receive. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Paul. It is great to hear those messages back from the public. That concludes my verbal report, Vice Chair, or the chair is back. I'm not sure who's taking over right now, but thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Chief. And we'll see if the chair is available or not. Chair back. So it looks like she's still having technical difficulties, although I do see her on my screen.
I'm afraid my internet is hello. I'm afraid my internet is really unstable.
So if you agree, Chair Beck, we will continue on. And is that okay with you? We may have lost her. So I see Marty's, so member Carr's hand up for a question. So go ahead, member Carr.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for your report. I just had a clarification question. I'm obviously concerned about the fact that there's been 23 arsons in Rideau Vanier, and you spoke about mediation measures. Can I just ask, specifically, are these arsons, is it a trend or that's happening? Or, is it suspected that this is a grouping? And I was wondering about the definition of arson. Is it, is this just something like a Molotov cocktail being thrown, or it's a deliberate attempt to destroy a building? And I just kind of wondered sort of if you could speak about what those mediation measures could be, or what could possibly be put in place. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. You're on mute, Swain.
Thank you, member Carter. I'll pass this over to Acting Deputy Ferguson to answer, please.
Thank you, member Carr. So arson is when it is a deliberate fire that's set. And our arson investigation, they are engaged also whenever there is a loss of life, whether it is a deliberate fire or an accidental one. So they will, the Orleans explosion is an example of a very thorough and complex investigation that they were involved in, as well as there was the high rise in Vanier. But oftentimes, until it is ruled to be accidental, they are engaged anyway. So a lot of fires they go to, and after the fire marshal has had a chance to take a look at it, they may not carry on the investigation. When there is a significant financial cost as well, our arson members are also engaged and required to investigate those ones. The trend that we're seeing is not, we're not seeing an arsonist per se. We have had incidents where we've had a lot of dumpster fires or recycling boxes and things lit on fire, and we've been able to, in years past, been able to identify those people. But in this case, a lot of it is more surrounding the fact that there are, whether it's electrical, whether it is faulty wiring, whether it is, a fire on a stove that got out of hand, cooking accidents, those types of things. And again, as I said, they're engaged in those investigations until it is proven that it is not actually an arson. So they get called in a lot.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. You answered my question. I was wondering if it was, the arsonist with the garbage bin type thing. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? If not, then we could say that the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Excellent. We will move on to 8.4, the Ottawa Police Service Board Work Plan 2023. And on this, I just wanted to bring forward a motion re use of force. Krista, are you able to put the motion up?
So Randa has it up. It's just, I think she just needs to format the screen so that.
Okay. So I will read the motion so it can be read into the record. I am moving a motion whereas previous members of the Ottawa Police Services Board had intended to conduct a review of the board's policies applicable to de-escalation, use of force, and non-force options, and or other tactical deployment strategies, including but not limited to dynamic entries by way of motion M-20-04. And whereas this review did not take place, and whereas the topic of use of force by police continues to be a relevant and contentious issue facing police services, particularly as it relates to the disproportionate use of force on racialized individuals, as well as individuals with real or perceived mental health disabilities. And whereas there have been some developments since the original motion in 2020 tabled by the previous board, including but not limited to a completed review of dynamic entries by the service, the development of a draft race data strategy and action plan, and amendments to the use of force reporting requirements in the equipment and use of force regulations, Regulation 532/22 under the Police Services Act. Therefore, be it resolved that the Chief of Police be directed to arrange a briefing to the board's Policy and Governance Committee on use of force, including information on member training, de-escalation, use of force, and non-force options, and/or other tactical deployment strategies, such as dynamic entries, and any developments occurring at the provincial and/or federal level to modernize use of force applications by police services. So is the motion carried? Is there any comments on the motion first?
No comments.
Sounds good.
Okay, so is the motion carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Now, with respect to the item, can we, any other, Member Carr.
Hi, yes, I did have two questions on the work plan. I just was wondering, I mean, I think obviously we can add things as we go along, but there was two things that I was surprised to not see on the work plan. And one pertained to staffing with respect to the resources that we need. We have 2 employees presently of the board. And I just wondered if you could speak to that. Maybe it doesn't need to be on the work plan, but that is a concern. I think Krista's probably going to answer the question. And the second one, with respect to the work of the board, one thing that I do find missing, and I've spoken to the chair about this previously, is sort of that communications and engagement piece, even in terms of our role as board members and engagement with the police. And I just, if you could just speak to sort of the genesis of this work plan and the inclusion of those items, and I think Krista will probably answer my first question.
Yes, through the chair. In terms of your first question, it is included on the work plan. It's under the section actioning of recommendations arising from the audit of the convoy response. And it's item number 10 under that section of the work plan. So it's page 9 of the report. And it specifically says to review the resourcing requirements of the board, including needs assessment and review of staffing complement at other large police boards. And that will be undertaken initially by the HR committee and myself, and then we'll eventually go to the board.
Perfect, thanks. I should have looked further back into the columns. Thank you for that, Krista.
No problem.
Then, I don't know, Salim, if you can speak to my second piece with respect to more of a proactive comms engagement piece.
So I'd prefer for the chair to speak to it. If Krista's had discussions with the chair and could speak to it, I'm happy for Krista to
Sure. So I can make some initial comments. So as I think the chair would have addressed this in her verbal, but she is planning to meet over the summer months with community stakeholders, both in terms of connecting on behalf of the board, but also in support of the strategic planning and budget process to start collecting feedback directly from community members. And I would also add that when the board does have an opportunity to review the staffing, that's also an opportunity to consider what sort of resources you would want to supplement the board staff to be able to do more focused efforts in terms of engagement and communication.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I do just a comment that I often find that there's a disconnect on what the actual mandate of the board is and what the perception is of what by the public. So I do think it's important to do that. So thank you very much for answering that.
So I'll just add 2 comments as well, Member Carr. And I think one is on the actual outreach and communication activities. There'll be opportunity for all board members to participate with the chair in community engagement. So I think that'll be an occasion for us to get involved over the summer months. And with respect to your first question, remind me again, the first question you were specifically asking was?
with respect to the staffing, but I guess it's buried.
So
under the
yeah,
audit.
sorry, I was
It's
just gonna
buried under
say,
the audit recommendations as opposed to being a standalone, which is where I was looking
right.
for
And
that.
if I'm not mistaken, I would just add, I think we already have budgeted for 1 FTE for this current year. So so as Krista said, the HR committee should be looking at it, but I think there's some budget allocations, if I'm not mistaken, for that. Chief Stubbs.
Vice Chair, if that topic is done, I was going to go back to your motion for a quick moment in regards to the use of force, de-escalation, et cetera. We have had discussions amongst the OPS, and it was our intention to reach out to the board, the Policy and Governance Committee, and of course, any other board members, and bring them to our training facility. And depending on what we could fit in, either a half day or even a full day, part, if you will, classroom education, if you will, and actually getting on the range, getting into some of our training venues to educate the board on what we do. So that's sort of our intention on the briefing aspect of that motion.
That would be great. Thank you. Any further comments on the work plan? If not, is this item carried that the Ottawa Police Service Board approve the 2023 board work plan as endorsed by the Policy and Governance Committee?
Carried.
Carried.
Next held item is the strategic plan development consultation strategy and planning process. I believe, is it Member Curry who held this?
Yeah. So just a couple of quick questions. So in the motion itself on page 75, the second part of it says direct that the consultation strategy for the strategic plan also be used to inform the development of the 2024 draft budget. So my general comment is the word also there, I think it's has to, not that I want to change the word. My point is that it has to inform the 2024 budget. And that's the order of operations. But if you look at the timeline, and that's on page 80, you see that the process goes May to October, approval of the final strategic plan. If we approve it that late in October, then that gives us very little time because, then we get into the city budget and our budget. I'm not sure that, maybe somebody reassure me that strategic planning process is going to align with the budget calendar process on page 131, which is another motion I held, but only because the two are so related. So my general comment is the strategic planning has to come before the budget process. And, we have a lot of feedback from the last budget process that I think is very, very helpful. And some of the early consultation information we get will be very helpful as well. I'm just worried that there won't be enough time for the strategic planning priorities to then impact the budget.
So I see John has his hand up. Are you able to respond to this, John?
Yeah, thanks. And just I can answer this for Krista and myself. So yes, that is the timeline for approval of the strat plan, but we expect that by late July, early August, we'll begin to get the bulk of the consultation in. So that will include things like advantage polling, a lot of the discussion that the chair is carrying out in the community, the chief as well. We're going to be supporting board members in some of their own efforts. So the goal is that by the end of August, you'll have a very solid package of consultation, and that'll be ready for you for the budget consultation as well. So yeah, those are the timelines we're operating on. The October timeline takes into account the final approvals at the board of the final strategic plan, and that type of, including publishing, including reaching out to the community. So yes, you will have a solid package before the end of August.
Okay, I am reassured, Vice Chair Fakarani. The other question I have is, I looked at all the plan for the strategic planning, the consultation, and I think it's great. One of the things I wanted to do, and I'd like to have it done sooner rather than later, is that there is a chief of police that was in Longueuil, and now he is the chief of police in Montreal. And he has a very interesting model, or he's been using a very interesting model of community policing. And I almost wondered if in consultation, can we not have some kind of consultation where all of us just have him come and speak to us, or it could be by Zoom, that we understand better what they're doing, what they did in Longueuil and are doing in Montreal, or is that a conversation with the chief and him? I think the board would really benefit from looking at this. So I just don't know how, when, why. Now I know why, how, when, where. What do we think about that?
So before I get John and or Krista to respond, I think not only like the police chief of Montreal, but there's also academics that we could tap into, you know, because they're studying this across a number of police service organizations, right? So I think we should also tap into researchers and academics in our consultations, and I didn't see it in the report per se. So that was, I'm glad you raised this, Member Curry, because that was one of my thoughts too, is who else are we missing? So I don't know if there's any other questions before we turn it to John and or Krista. Okay, John or Krista, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so thank you, Member Curry. We're happy to take that direction, and I think we'll be coming around. I know we'll be coming around to the individual board members to ask these types of questions so we can structure out those discussions. So that it is not lost on us that we want to hear from experts as well as the community, and we'll do that as part of it. So we'll come around to you, especially as we're designing the last session. So we'll definitely have those discussions with you, and that we could whoever you would like to add, we're happy to reach out to them.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, honestly, I know that logistically will take some thought. I know on other boards I've been on, we've just had them come and present at a board meeting, you know, have sort of an education session. But I didn't want to move a motion. I just want to leave that with you to figure out how we could do this to inform some of our strategic planning. So even if you just want to, if it's that way, or if it's presentation or whatever it is, you leave it with you. But I just want to make sure I said that.
Thank you, Member Curry. Any other comments, questions? John or Krista, would you like any last minute comments, or were you okay?
I don't have anything further to add. Thanks.
Okay, then I'll read it out. That the Ottawa Police Services Board, number one, approve the consultation strategy and planning process outlined in this report to support the development of the board's new strategic plan for the Ottawa Police Service. And number two, direct the consultation strategy for the strategic plan also be used to inform the development of the 2024 draft budget. Is the item carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Thank you. And now we are going to go to item 8.12, presentation on hate crimes and race-based data collection. So I will turn this over to the chief to start us off.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Obviously, hate crime and is something that we've been talking about a lot in the last few years. We have stood up a team in the Ottawa Police Service to address the increasing concerns in the diverse communities that we have in Ottawa. And with that comes a lot of questions about data and how we're compiling the data. What is a hate crime, and how it's spread out around the city. So we put together a presentation, and I will pass it off. I believe, John, you're going to start, and then we'll go from there. So John, over to you.
Yeah, Krista, if you wouldn't mind letting Anita share her screen. She's got the presentation. I'll wait till it's uploaded. Perfect, thank you. So last month, the board asked for a briefing on how hate and bias crime data is collected and reported. And there's also interest to hear about some of the work we're doing to develop a race and identity-based data strategy. Both initiatives are key components of the Drive 2 strategy that was approved recently by the board. Today, we have Sergeant Ali Togrel, who's going to give you a presentation, the first portion of the presentation on hate and bias crime. And then afterwards, we will have Superintendent Dave Zacharias and Dr. Anita Grace, who works with us on race and identity-based data. And they're going to be taking us through the back half of the presentation. So Ali, if you're online, go ahead and we can advance the slide to the next. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thanks for having us. I'll jump right into this. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about our hate crime stats and how we gather such stats. And first, wanted to briefly go over what an actual hate crime is. We provide you with a brief summary of what we deem to be a hate crime there. So the formal definition is a crime or offense committed against a person or a property that is perceived to be motivated and or is motivated in whole or in part by the suspect's hate, bias, or prejudice based on the victim's real or perceived try to protect their rights, which you have them there in race, religion, ethnicity, mental or physical disability. This definition really came into play about 3 years ago. And we're hoping, I also sit on the federal task force to have this definition be accepted across Canada, hopefully by the end of 2023, based on the work that we're doing with the federal task force. Next slide, please. So measuring of hate crimes, we measure hate crime stats through the Uniform Crime Reporting Survey, UCR. This is done through Stats Canada, and it ensures that the data that is collected is consistently done across Canada, so there's no discrepancies. This was updated in 2022 to be more reflective of our current trends. There were multiple new categories that were added that were missing in the past to give it a more enhanced data collection or information on the actual demographics and groups that are being targeted across Canada. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, not all incidences are deemed to be hate crimes. At OPS, all reports of hate bias are investigated, including non-criminal hate incidents. This was as a request of the community and United for All that we not only investigated hate crimes, but also hate incidents. The investigations are identical as we would do with a hate crime. There is a follow-up to the victim complainant. And then we, at the very least, specifically for hate incidents, we speak to both parties. We try to identify the accused or the person who was at fault to, at the very least, to provide an education piece and to give them the information necessary. They might have not crossed the threshold of criminality, but they may be very close to it. So we felt that that was something that was needed and was something that was wanted by the community, and we've had very good success in terms of being able to interject at an earlier part and preventing that individual to go further and possibly commit actual hate crimes. Next slide, please. And over here, as you can see, those are on your right-hand side. Those are year-end stats from 2021. Since 2020, we've been sharing our stats semi-annually. And again, that was a request from the community and from the United for All Coalition. The stats are also available on Open Ottawa. Like I said, we release them twice a year through media releases. So that pretty much covers in terms of how we obtain the statistics and how we share them, and just briefly what we do in terms of dealing with hate incidences and hate crimes.
Great, thanks, Ali. So largely due to Ali's work in this field, he's OPS is definitely a leader in Canada in how we're handling data and how we're handling these investigations. We're taking a victim-centered approach. I don't know if there's any questions, Chair, for Ali before we're going to be moving on to the second part of the conversation. I think it might be better if we just back up one slide. And if there's any questions specifically to hate crime and bias crime and how we keep that data and how we display it, or any types of questions like that.
So I can't see everyone on my screen right now because the presentation's up. So I'm just relying on, is there anyone who could possibly speak up if there's, I don't see anyone with their hands up. The one question I do have, if there's no other hands up, Ali, is there a data set on sort of the intensity of the crime? So, you know, it's a range of hate crimes that take place. Are we going digging deeper? Like there could be graffiti, but there could also be physical violence. Like, is there a continuum of hate crime data, or is the data simply sort of like fits into one box? That's the question.
No, so when we release the stats semi-annually, what we do is we list the top 5 offenses, for example, and this is historically has always been the same 5. Mischief to property is always the number 1 offense. For this year, I'm looking at the up-to-date stats. Threats as 2nd, criminal harassment is 3rd, assaults, and unfortunately, willful promotion of hatred, which is an actual hate crime in the criminal code, an actual formal hate crime. Those typically are our top 5 categories of offenses that occur, I would say, every year. So we do release the top 5 violations on top of the top 5 unfortunately groups that are often targeted with hate incident, with hate crimes.
And the top 5 groups would be?
Currently, this again, with some changes to the UCR code so far, but it's again, the top 5 is consistently, it's always been Jewish community, the Black community. This year we have combination of more than 2 motivation. This is something that we'd ask for because there are times where the individual who's being targeted, it could be reflective of their ancestry or also their religion. So Stat Canada included that so we can gather the complete wholesome picture of what had taken place, and followed by this year so far is the Muslim community and the Asian community. So again, and the LGBT community as well. So typically that's a top 5, 6. It's consistent across, sadly, every year.
I see Member Curry has her hand up. Member Curry.
Yeah, thank you. This is 2021. I think in 2022, I have a couple of questions. First of all, and sorry if I missed this, does this also apply to that hate crime that is done online?
Yes.
It does, includes, because I would say that you have, so homosexual, lesbian, or gay, and then you just said LGBTQ, but other sexual orientation, my understanding is the trans community is finding it has increased dramatically in the last year, but this is 2021, but I wouldn't say that they'd said it was 0 before that, but that's not actually specified here, in that the way we categorize.
And I think the reason that we provided this 2021 statistic was to show you how limited the Stat Canada categories were. So in 2022, they updated it. So we're able to include the trans community. 100% agree with you. But unfortunately, prior to 2021, the only classifications that we have under sexual orientations, what you see there, which again limits a large group of unfortunate victims that we had that we could not properly identify. But going forward this year, end of 2022, when this came into play, in 2023, when the stats are released, you will see that the trans community is identified, and there are statistics that would show that.
Okay, great. I mean, and I think too, when we get new and better data, as we continue to get new and better data, it might just tell us retrospectively that some of this data wasn't that accurate. It's just that we didn't have good enough data. But nonetheless, we are, moving forward, and we'll get better data. But just so we're all aware that might be what we're saying shortly. It won't be that there's this incredible rise in something, whatever category. It'll be that our data was not that great before. Anyway, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Member Curry. Any other questions? If not, John, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, and thanks, Member Curry. That's one of the things, we know how much the community cares about this data, and we have been working to improve it. You're going to be seeing some of this data, a fulsome picture of it in the annual report that comes out in June. And as the changes to the categories improve, we're working through Open Data Ottawa to make sure it's there. It's also going to be one of the features of the community dashboard that we're building. Thanks, Ali. And just so moving on to the next portion of the presentation, which is around our race data and race and identity based data work. So as the board knows, one of the strategic initiatives that we have right now is to become a better data-driven organization. This is important for several reasons. We need better data to identify and understand community safety trends, and we also want to optimize our services for the community. In the 2023 budget, we made some key investments. The highlight for the community will be in November, the launch of a community safety data portal, which, as you can see on your far right around the dashboards, it's the kind of thing you'll see. A key component about that, it'll be a centralized area. And one of the things we're looking at we're looking to implement now is a race and identity-based data strategy. I'm going to ask Superintendent Zacharias, who I believe is online right now, to take us through this and speak about how our approach first fits in with the broader approaches being led by the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. Dave, if you're online, could you?
Yeah, thank you, John. Good evening, board members. I'm going to touch on the OACP efforts in relation to race identity-based data collection, analysis, and reporting strategy that's being built. So again, when it comes to developing the strategy, for us, we will build on our own previous experience. As many of you would recall, since 2013, we've been collecting traffic stop race data in Ottawa Police Service. Again, we're going to build on that. This includes following our legislative responsibilities outlined in the Ontario Anti-Racism Data Standards. Our approach will also align with OACP's race and identity-based data strategy. So what's happened here is back in 2022, around September, the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police recognized we need a provincial standards, a framework for race data collection, analysis, and reporting. So they formed an expert working group made up of Peel Region Police, Toronto Police Service, the Ontario Provincial Police Service, RCMP, Ontario Human Rights Commission, and also members from the academic community. Many of you would recall Professor Lauren Foster and Les Jacobs. They've been partnering with us, with the Ottawa Police Service, for many years now in our efforts to race data collection. So they're also part of the expert working committee at a provincial level. So where does Ottawa fit into that? Right now, that work is underway. It started in September 2022. They're working diligently with really rigorous timelines. And Ottawa Police Service is actually leading Zone 2 efforts in terms of socialization of what's being developed at the provincial level. So that work is just about completed. And it's going to be presented at the OACP AGM in June. And once it's passed with resolutions, there's plans to create a proposed plans to create. The next steps will be to create a center of excellence for data collection. It's going to give police services in Ontario a framework. So again, this work at the provincial level is establishing a framework for police services across Ontario. And we've been doing that for a while now, but with this, it's going to enhance our efforts. The analysis and reporting framework will be developed for us. It will be developed in collaboration with the Community Equity Council and academic experts as well. So we're going to take some of those framework, the standards that are being set by the province, and we're going to tailor it to our needs, to Ottawa needs, and that's what our plan is. And again, there's been lots of investments made within our service. This will also allow us to build on our internal experience and expertise, including from our past race and identity-based data collection reports and recommendations with new subject matter experts and specialists that we've hired. John's team has hired new members, experts like data analytics with dedicated resources in data engineering, spatial analysis, and data science as well. So now we also have experienced equity and diversity professionals within our own service. So we're building that capacity. Race data is going to be a critical component moving forward for us, which is going to help us, advance intelligence-led policing. Again, this will enable a collective analysis approach with more prompt and transparent public reporting of findings. Ongoing engagement and collaboration with stakeholders and community partners will be very critical for analysis, reporting, and action planning. Again, the OPS is taking on a leadership role in our efforts and the role to help other police services as well, so we can have a standardized practice. To tell you more about what OPS is doing, I'm going to actually invite Dr. Anita Grace now to give us an overview and continue with this presentation. But before that, if you have any questions that you would like to ask me in relation to the OACP efforts, feel free to do so. John, over to you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Anita. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, board. As has been mentioned, the OPS data strategy is rooted in multiple efforts in the OACP approach that Superintendent Zacharias was just speaking, as well as in past recommendations that we've heard from committees and from experts. There have been long-standing calls for the OPS to make action here. And at the core, this work is part of our ongoing continuous improvement exercise. For the past decade, the OPS has been a leader in this space, but we know that there is much more work to do. In 2022, our longtime partners, Dr. Les Jacobs and Lauren Foster, examined the OPS use of force results, and they made several recommendations in collaboration with our Community Equity Council. And these included a call to develop, in partnership with the community, a comprehensive race data strategy. And the goal of this strategy is to identify the drivers of disparity, to co-create solutions with the community and membership, to improve community safety, and to build transparency and increase trust. So to do this, we're beginning with consultation and collaboration. Our approach to developing the strategy builds upon the previous consultations that have taken place, as well as we are now reaching out to more stakeholders to engage. We've been doing this work, as has been said, for over a decade, and we're mindful of all the recommendations that have already been made. So we're making sure to look back on previous recommendations and make sure that we're including those moving forward. But we're also working to engage again. So we recently presented to the CEC, and now the CEC members are reaching out to their own networks to advise on who we should talk to next. We've engaged with local groups who we'll be talking to, including Ottawa Inner City Health and Ottawa Public Health, the Violence Against Women Data Committee. These are groups that we're setting up meetings with. We've re-engaged with policing partners such as Drs. Foster and Jacob, as well as partners like the RCMP race-based data collection team. We also have engaged with our own internal strategic partnership and engagement team and the Respect, Values, and Inclusion Directorate to assist us in identifying stakeholders, partners, basically anyone who wants to talk to us and be involved in these discussions about the collection of race-based data, the analysis, the reporting. There's many, many facets to this, and we want to make sure that we're being inclusive as possible as we move forward. And it's also important to say that this is not a one-time consultation. We understand that this data strategy is very complex, and it's not going to be a one-time done strategy. It's going to be an evergreen strategy that will continue to evolve and will involve feedback, will involve consultation, and will continue to be refined. Legislation will change, approaches will change, the needs of the community will evolve, and we're going to have to be live to that. But we will be reporting back to the board in September on this consultation process and the outcome of that in terms of the draft of the strategy that we'll be tabling, which, as I said, will be a document that will continue to evolve. But one of the things that we will be addressing in our race and in this strategy is the analysis and reporting. So we'll be building on the expertise the internal expertise, as well as the expertise of that we consult with. to develop a framework to understand what the community's needs and interests are in terms of the analysis that we're conducting and how we report that back. The Ottawa Police is already mandated to collect and report on race-based data. And we've been doing so for a long time, which is the traffic stop race-based data, 10 years of data there. We also have obligations through the Ministry of the Solicitor General on all use of force incidents. But through our consultation, we're going to be identifying additional areas where the OPS should be analyzing and reporting on race and also social identity data. What we're already hearing is that we can't just isolate race. So how are we going to expand that? How do we do this more broadly? These are the conversations that we're going to be having. We know that there are concerns about vulnerability and victimization alongside, issues of social identity and race. We know that there are concerns about equitable service delivery. And we can't solve these problems with data, but we certainly can't build informed strategies without data and information. So that leads me to moving forward. What we're going to be doing in the next, very shortly, we'll be presenting our annual report, which includes some of our preliminary analysis of our use of force race data. We're going to be presenting later this year a more fulsome use of force report, which includes race-based data analysis. We'll also be presenting the traffic stop race-based data, updating those previous reports. And then, as already been mentioned, John's has mentioned, we have our community safety open data portal, which will be publicly accessible data, and a lot of that data will include race and social identity data that we'll be presenting. Some data sets that we've already identified and some that will be coming out through our community consultation to continue to inform how we're going to develop this data portal and what data the community wants to see. So I welcome your questions and thank you for this opportunity. I'll move it over, pass it back to John.
Yeah, that concludes the end of the presentation. I think it would have been interesting to count how many times we said data in the presentation, but so thank you very much. And we're happy to hear if there's any questions from the board. I know that was a lot in 10 slides, so fire away.
I see Member Curry with her hand up. Member Curry.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, I think everyone's very excited that, that we will get more and more data, better data, even to the first part of this presentation. One of the things I'm imagining Q2, Q4, though, is this will be slightly past our strategic planning process in terms of trying to set some type of strategic goal or have PKIs that come out of this. This is slightly past when we would actually have our strategic plan. I'm wondering, though, if there's an ability for us to set some sort of goals or yearly goals, even though we won't have everything until Q4. Like, and it's not what Q4, I hope that doesn't mean December. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so no, it is going to be October, November, December. But we can, when we're coming around to talk to the board about strat planning, we're happy to have that discussion around the types of data we do have. I mean, currently we are, as you can imagine, we're doing a lot of internal testing. We have a beta site going. There's a lot of information currently being gathered. So we are able to provide by the fall to help you with strategic planning, some information that, we do have information already, but we're just trying to make sure that when we do go out, it's very clear, there's a good comm plan to go with it. And so that's why we're aiming for Q4. But no, for sure you will have some very excellent information sets, and we'll be talking to you about what will be in that later in June.
Okay. I mean, I think too, it would be great for you to say to us what you think are some realistic targets or goals. I mean, obviously, I don't never like to power trip. It is the board's responsibility to set them, but we don't want to set unrealistic goals and targets. So anything you would have that you would see as a recommendation that may be realistic. We have this debate on other boards where you could just say, okay, well, our goals are all zero. We're just going to have 0 incidents. And that is really, truly not realistic. It would be ideal. But if you could do that as part of it, I think that would be very helpful for us. And in terms of your communications plan, why that would be. Why would we set a goal at that, when I'm sure everyone would like to see 0 or something, depending on the.
So we're definitely able to, so I understand what you're asking, and we're happy to, I'll definitely bring a report back as part of strategic planning where we can have that discussion around some of the some of the targets that different other police services have looked at, and that type of thing, to see, you know, what's reasonable, what's unreasonable, and we can bring that forward as a discussion paper, no problem.
All right, thank you very much for this. It's very exciting.
Any other board members have any questions? I know Member Henschel will also be interested in this. He's a big proponent. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us today, but and did send his regrets, but he's a big proponent of data. And from my perspective, it's really also important as the service continues to build trust with the community and how this data is communicated with the public. I'll turn it over to the chief before closing, if he's got any last comments on this presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm excited about this as well too. You know, the progress that has been made. Well, I'll just say in the last 6 months since I've been here is incredible. John and his team, Ali and his team, they've really cleared a number of hurdles. We have a few more to overcome, but the various iterations that John's team has sent just internally to us about what we're going to see, not only with hate-based crime, race-based crimes, but all the other different parts of our world, to me is quite exciting. So I'm looking forward to Q4 as well, along with Member Curry.
Thank you, Chief. And we also want to thank Ali and Superintendent Zacharias and Dr. Grace and John for the presentation. That we will now move to the official that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this presentation for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Thank you. We will now go to 8.13 OPS Safe Workplace Program. Again, Chief, I will turn it over to you to introduce your staff who will be doing the presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Today we'll be updating the board on the OPS Safe Workplace Program. This program has been a top priority for me and the executive team, and I'm happy to see the work done to date to advance this important program going forward. Presenting today will be Deputy Chief Bell, who is the executive sponsor of the program. And he has Angela Slobodian and Heather Fisher with him as well. I'll turn the presentation over to Steve.
Thank you very much, Chief. So just going to wait to get Angela Slobodian on. There we go. So thank you very much, members of the board. I'm really happy to be here today to give you an update and presentation of the overview of this really important work that ourselves and the board undertook in 2020. In April of that year, the joint strategy on workplace violence and harassment was started between the chief of police and the chair of the board, assuming roles as co-chairs on this work. This project has been running for about 18 months, a little over 18 months. And what I can tell you is it's included a pilot with Ruben Tomlinson that helped us provide an independent complaint process for our members to have intake and investigations in relation to complaints around sexual violence and harassment, as well as Ruben Tomlinson provided and conducted a workplace culture assessment. Heather, if you can go to the next slide, please. So during that time, since the end of the pilot, we've been working on developing the Safer Workplace program. We've done that after we received immeasurable amounts of input on the design and program that we should be developing in our organization. And what I can tell you is when I say immeasurable amounts of input, we spoke with over 100 members and community partners. We had a core working group that was comprised of the Respect, Values, and Inclusion Directorate that had both the Respect, Ethics, and Values branch and the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion branch. Our Human Resources section, which included both our Labor Relations section and our Wellness section. our professional standards unit, our legal services section, corporate communications, frontline, and members of the police services board being on that core working group. Beyond that, we had an internal advisory group that was made up of every rank within the organization, both sworn and civilian, and was drawn from people from across all directorates in the organization. We also had an external advisory group, and that was industry and community experts, including the Community Equity Council, City of Ottawa, the Women and Gender Equality Canada, Shelter Movers, Carleton University, the Canadian Armed Forces Sexual Misconduct Center, Global Affairs, the RCMP, and in that external committee, the PSB chair and the chief were both co-chairs of that committee. So all this work led to the development and approval and ultimate rollout of the Safe Workplace program in January of 2022. What we did was we outlined a programmatic approach to combating sexual violence and harassment in the OPS with a multifaceted approach to implementing a sustainable cross-cutting program that would look at all of the various situations that were creating this circumstance in our organization. So with that, what I will do is I'll now turn it over to Acting Chief Human Resources Officer Angela Slobodian, who will start to lay out the program and what all of that information we took in, what it resulted in. Angela, over to you. Angela, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
It looks like her microphone is not working because she's unmuted, but can't hear her.
Okay. Heather, are you able to take over from here?
Yeah, I can jump in. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So as DC Bell has mentioned, we transitioned the Joint Strategy and Workplace Sexual Violence and Harassment Project into the Safe Workplace Program. And this work was informed by a number of internal audits and reviews. And these reports all identified significant contributing organizational factors that were influencing the management and reporting of sexual violence, harassment, and discrimination at OPS. And all of these things led to member harm. In particular, that we heard that the following were the most influential factors. So trust, fear, accountability, power, and workplace culture all were incredibly important in factors that prevented members from coming forward. So as part of the RT work that DC Bell has previously identified, they provided a framework and incorporated many similar components from what we heard in previous reports and set out the core action items that our program should have. So part of those core action items were 7 findings. The first was to increase accountability, to strengthen leadership, restore the workplace, and set out clear expectations for workplace behavior, encourage reporting and improve the investigation of complaints, provide better support to employees, and augment programs and resources to advance culture at OPS. So using these 7 core action items as foundational framework, we identified a harm reduction strategy that consisted of unwavering commitment from OPS and the OPSB leadership. We established a safe workplace program to manage and respond to complaints and issues, and to strengthen alignment and influences between the OPS, the OPSB, OPA, and SOA, and other influencers. A part of this work has been to advance our culture and to remove systemic barriers within our organization. And this strategy sought to increase the engagement and support for members through the building of a safer workplace environment. Our main focus has been to support our members internally and improve our service delivery to the public, which in turn strengthens our efforts to build public trust. So our Safe Workplace program right now at OPS, as I mentioned, is all about advancing our workplace culture. So within 2022, our goal was to establish the workplace program at OPS to make impactful changes towards advancing our workplace culture, and this program required multiple director engagement and unwavering support from senior leadership, which was comprised of has been comprised of multiple elements, including the formation of the Safe Workplace Office. So I would like to just take a moment here and just let you know that as much as the Safe Workplace Office is part of our Respond pillar, they are not impacted by the program itself. They are an arm's length. So today we are here talking about the program, and we will highlight the efforts to date that have been done to initiate the office. But they will be coming to you in the fall to speak about the office more so than today. So part of these 7 elements that have created the Safe Workplace program are going to be shared with you in greater detail further into this presentation. But it's interesting to note that all of these pillars are owned by senior officers within the organization and span across the organization and not just in one directorate. So the way that the program has been built is to increase understanding, a prevention pillar, support pillar, respond, and to restore. So I'll now take the opportunity to share with you some of the additional background on the individual elements of the program, what we've accomplished, and outline for you the next steps that the program will be taking in 2023. So within the Understand pillar, this focuses on building the organization and the members' understanding of the overall issues at OPS, the future state of the program, and our evaluation strategy. Over the last year, we've been working towards increasing the level of understanding related to the overall program, the associated processes such as prevention initiatives, complaint submission processes, as well as defining the roles and expectations of all members, managers, supervisors, and leaders. As a service, we have reinforced the importance of this work by successfully transitioning the Joint Strategy of Workplace Sexual Violence and Harassment project into the development of the Safe Workplace program. We have taken the time to formalize the governance processes that would support the integration and alignment of all the program deliverables. This has included the development and implementation of a Safe Workplace Program Steering Committee. The next steps in this area are focused on the continual build out of the 2023 program deliverables, as well as finalizing the evaluation strategy that will be used to manage the effectiveness of the overall program and inform our approach moving forward. The prevention pillar focuses on the prevention of sexual violence and harassment from occurring and actively taking action to strengthen the culture of the OPS and improve the workplace environment. Although much of the focus of 2022 was spent on the implementation of the Safe Workplace Office, prevention plays a critical role in the program and the overall health of our organization. Some of the accomplishments to date include the increased training for our champions of professional practice. This group is made up of both sworn and civilian members from all ranks across the organization who act as force multipliers for positive cultural change and engagement within OPS. The service has seen a successful rollout of active bystandership for law enforcement training. This was first delivered for all staff sergeants and middle management starting in Q4 of 2022 and has now been opened up to all members across OPS. Another key accomplishment has been the organization's commitment to the enhancement of organizational promotional processes. A promotion project team was stood up in December 2022 and has successfully developed and implemented a refined superintendent promotional process and are on track to launch a new inspector, sergeant, and staff sergeant process starting in fall 2023. The next steps that you can expect under this pillar is to launch our multi-month awareness campaign, which will kick off in June 2023. We will also be rolling out the Services Code of Professional Ethics this July. The support pillar components seek to identify gaps in support services and heighten the available support systems in place from an accessibility and service perspective to members involved in a workplace matter. These include supports to complainants, respondents, bystanders, and managers. Over the last year, the support pillar has successfully implemented increases in support services for all OPS members. This has included the launch of the Blue Buddy system, which allows members to identify a trusted support person within the organization that the wellness team can leverage when providing support services to members in need. Another accomplishment has been the expansion of our peer support program, increased reach outs to members away from work, as well as the continued development of our reintegration program. The next steps in this area is to explore other opportunities to expand our mental health supports and to continue to widen the reach of the wellness team. In the next couple months, the wellness team will be alternating deployments out of each OPS location to reduce barriers for members accessing wellness supports, as well as fostering positive working relationships. The Respond pillar component focuses on 3 core functions: the intake of complaints, the investigation process, and the resolution process. As mentioned earlier in this presentation, much of the emphasis was placed on setting up the Safe Workplace program in 2022. We are pleased to announce that this office officially opened their doors on October 1st, 2022, with a mandate to serve the OPS members by ensuring that applicable workplace issues, complaints are addressed fairly and in a timely fashion through assessments, resolutions, investigations, or alternative dispute resolution processes. It is important to note that although the Respond pillar is a part of the program, as I have mentioned earlier, the program has no influence or impact on the day-to-day operations of the Safe Workplace office. To support this and limit confusion of the mandates, the office will be announcing an office name change as part of the June awareness campaign. Another key change that will be implemented will be the incorporation of standardized reporting. Throughout our process mapping exercises, it was decided that to better employ a member-centric intake process, which would allow members to report where they felt most comfortable and supported, that the intake process would move away from a centralized intake to a standardized intake. Consultations have occurred on the development of the standardized intake process and form, and these changes will be implemented in June 2023. The final pillar is our Restore pillar. This pillar focuses on adopting practices that restore members' confidence and trust in the service, their colleagues, and in the program. This restoration work has increased capacity to deliver and access conflict coaching and workplace restorative processes. These services are aimed to address systemic issues in the specific work environment by helping the team work through issues in a positive and collaborative and productive manner. Inclusive of this, members can also access mediation and facilitated dialogue sessions. The next steps for this work is to leverage the awareness campaign to increase members' awareness of the variety of conflict support services that are available to them. We will also be launching an anonymous conflict support line that members can access to ask questions and learn what options are available to them to resolve conflicts that they are currently experiencing in the workplace. I'll now turn the presentation back over to DC Bell.
Thank you very much, Heather. Great job. So happy to take any questions on this.
I see Member Curry has her hand.
I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to say that, you know, as a city councilor, I go to a lot of different meetings, community events. That's all we do in our spare time. And you wouldn't believe how many police officers have come up to me to say that they are so, they're noticing a definite culture change in this organization. And, you know, when we look at these initiatives that have come before us, whether it's the Drive to report, and anything we just saw today, there's definitely a different feel. Culture change is very, very difficult. And I have heard it again and again at community events, bumping into people just even in the community and people coming up and saying, I just want to let you know that I'm really impressed with what's happening at the police services and the police services board and blah, blah, blah. But they often reference this, that there's a culture change that is tangible. And so I just wanted to say thank you to Angela and Heather and Steve, all of you, and Dave, obviously, and all the other initiatives that you listed as to what has built up to this, because it is making a difference. And I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate hearing that. One of the things we wanted to highlight tonight as well, and I think we did, is this started out from a place as a joint OPSB initiative. And I think it's really important for the success of it as we move along that we continue it in that way. So anything that we can do to reinvigorate that that engagement, the direction of the board in this would be very helpful. We'll continue to bring updates on the progress. It's going to take multiple years to implement fully the program, multiple more after that to see the effects. But Member Curry, I'm super happy to hear that we already have some of those. So we'll continue to keep you updated on this as we move ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Bell. Any other comments or questions? Chief, would you like to close this item with any comments?
Thank you, Vice Chair. And Member Curry, really appreciate those comments as well too. You know, a tremendous amount of work that has been done on this topic. And it's so important for, you know, the OPS to be healthy so we can be healthy for the community and do a really good job keeping this community safe. And there's so many people, you know, behind the scenes that are doing a lot of work. The people that present here are fantastic, and equally fantastic people that push a lot of these programs. We have a lot of work left to do. We've learned, made mistakes and readjusted, and we'll probably continue to do that. But you know, as long as it keeps going that way, then we're doing something positive. So thank you for the team for presenting today. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Chief Bell, Angela, and Heather for the presentation today. If I could speak kind of on behalf of the chair, any opportunities for engagement on this item from the board's perspective, I think would be welcomed. And if there's suggestions coming from the service, we have a chair with extensive experience, would add great value to the work, I'm sure. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of her because she has technical difficulties, so I'm able to do that and take the prerogative as vice chair. So we would welcome any of that. So for the formalities of the minutes, that the Ottawa Police Service Board received this presentation for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Great. Thank you. We'll move now to agenda item 8.14, response to the inquiry 1-2120. OPS's review of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. Member Curry, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to say a couple of things. I was surprised that of the there was only recommendation 41. I was surprised that there weren't more, and that in fact what was asked was, you know, because you could have just stopped there, but instead the service looked at the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls recommendations. And I see so there's 15 we still need to do to be compliant with those. But first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for not just saying, oh, well, there's only one, you know, and that's all we're going to look at. But building on that. And then, you know, honestly, when I'm looking, I don't have notes on them all, but we are compliant with 7, 15 still to go. You're going to continue to work with the Community Equity Council to deal with the last 15, but do we feel that at the end of the day, the 15 will be able to say we are compliant with all of them, all of the 22?
Chief Stubbs, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair, through to Member Curry. That's a good question. You know, there is a lot of work to do there, and you know, one thing that isn't highlighted in the report that could maybe be a bit more highlighted is we do have intentions of creating an Indigenous policing unit that is going to focus on, it is a priority for us to focus on items such as this, to push even more some of the recommendations that need that attention. We have some people that do work on these topics, but having it in the hands of some people that are doing it full time, I think will serve us better. Unfortunately, you know, that unit, I would have loved to create that unit in the spring, but our staffing situation just doesn't allow us to take any more people from the front lines based on our challenges there. But it is something that we have our eye on that I think will then will complete some of those recommendations that we're not compliant in. Deputy Ferguson is the lead executive member on this particular topic, and maybe I'll give you an opportunity if that's a very good question. And I'm not sure I could look anybody in the eye and say that, yes, for sure, we will be compliant 100%, because some of them will take a long time.
Yeah, I think I would agree, Chief. A lot of these are relationship based and you can't rush that. And so I think, we are working to improve, our outreach and, things like in the recruitment area and some of those things are going to be a long-term process and hopefully progress. And, I think we're committed as an organization to strive to continue to work towards this. And I will say it's a very, an issue that's near and dear to a number of us. And so, while we have right now a few subject matter experts who are working in that and who are focusing their work on our relationships with the Indigenous, it's obviously takes a long time, and one event can undo a lot of hard work in that area. So we continue to take steps forward, which I'm inspired by.
Thank you for that. That was all I had. Thank you on that.
Any other questions from members? If not, the one question I had concerned recruitment, which was just mentioned by Deputy Chief Ferguson. And so not only recruitment, but also promotions within or leadership within. Could you speak to that a bit further, Deputy Chief Ferguson or Chief Stubbs?
I'll take that maybe initially, and whether it goes to Deputy Ferguson or over to Deputy Bell on the recruitment side of the house, it is a focus. That diversity in we're recruiting not just Indigenous, but the representation of our community is something that we're keeping an eye on, and with every class. And I've been through one process now where recruiting presents us with the candidates that they're recommending for the next class. And things are being identified in terms of the diversity that we are bringing, and then the gaps therein as well too. And we are pressing them, and we want the targeted areas, the locations, the interactions we can have with the groups that aren't well represented to increase those numbers. It is a priority, and I want to see those numbers go up. But I don't know. Anyone want to put their hand up, Deputy Ferguson or Bell? I don't know, Steve, if you have any more to add on the recruiting side, since that's under you.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it very well, Chief. It is an area of focus for us, both from a recruiting and promotional perspective. So something we're looking at to remove barriers within our promotional processes and our recruiting processes to make sure that we're having our racialized and Indigenous members be able to get into the organization to represent the community, but then not have walls and be able to move through the organization. So we're absolutely working and focusing on that. I could tell you from a recruiting perspective, we've done quite well in terms of recruiting Indigenous members overall, and we have good representation of Indigenous members within the organization as it would compare to the census stats. But I think that only tells part of the story. We all know that Ottawa has the largest Inuit population outside of the north. And actually, I learned last week, we actually have the largest urban Inuit population in Canada. One thing we don't have in this organization is any Inuit officers. So that's an area of focus. So I think while I can say we are focusing on it and have had successes, we absolutely have more work to do in those areas.
Thank you for that response. Any other comments or questions for board members? If not, then the Ottawa Police Services Board received this report for information. Is this item received?
Received.
I am looking to Krista now. I have 8.15 as the next item. Is that the item you have too?
Yes, and this is
Yeah.
where the service would like to make a clarifying point before we go to comments from the board.
Okay, great. So go ahead. I guess it's Deputy Chief Bell.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vice Chair. So if I can ask the board, I'd like to make an amendment to the report. If I can ask the board to go to page 2 of this report, paragraph 4, that starts with based on inputs. So currently it reads, based on inputs, OPS staff will develop the budget proposal under the guidance of the board's Finance and Audit Committee, as well as the city's Chief Financial Officer. I would ask that we end the sentence after board's Finance and Audit Committee and strike out as well as the city's Chief Financial Officer. The reason for that is, although we will continue to work and dialogue with the city, there was concern that that was creating a lack of clarity around the governance. And the governance around our budget is the board sets the direction solely to us about what our envelopes are and what we are to bring forward to them to table. So we didn't want any lack of clarity that the city actually had involvement in that. So if I can propose that amendment.
Member Curry.
I'm happy to amend that. I just, and we can, and no problem. I will just say that I did not read it that way. I read it as you have to liaise with and maybe that is just the wording, but with the city's Chief Financial Officer for many reasons as you go about doing your budget preparations. There's information that the Chief Financial Officer at the city would have to be in dialogue with you. So, however, let's strike it, but I did not take it that way.
I'm glad to hear that. It wasn't meant to be that way, and the essence of it was as you indicated, but for the purposes of clarity, we did want to amend it. We will continue to work with the Chief Financial Officer as we move ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Member Carr.
Hi, thanks. I don't have a comment specifically on the amendment. I'm happy to amend it, but I noticed in the document when they talked about the consultation process, there was a sentence and it said, final consultation phase conducted by the board will commence. Can we just, is that final consultation process delegations? What is it specifically? If I could just get some clarity on that, I would appreciate it.
So, Krista, do you want me to answer that or do you want to answer that?
So I'll start and then I'll turn it over to you because I'm not sure what the services intentions were with that inclusion. But
Perfect.
Normally the board's process is to have delegations. So it's usually a Finance and Audit Committee meeting that occurs after budget tabling, which typically takes place in November. And that's usually the board-led part.
Perfect. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So we are involved in consultation to build the draft budget. We table it. We then work with the Police Services Board in terms of consultation around the table budget, but ultimately it's the board at that point receiving that consultation.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I did just want to confirm that it was, those delegations that we receive at Finance and Audit, and then again at the budget meeting. But thank you.
Member Curry.
I just wanted to say that I asked this to be held, but it was really just about the scheduling of the strategic priorities and the budget at the same time. So that's why I held both of them. So, but I don't have any other comments or questions.
Thank you. I'm going to just ask Krista, do we need a formal motion for the amendments, or can we just say that the amendment is carried?
I don't believe you need a formal motion. It'll be captured in the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. Then I will just say that the Ottawa Police Board received this report for information. Is the item received?
Received.
Great, thank you. I have 8.17 next, Workplace Accidents and Injuries Annual Report 2022. Just go ahead, Member Curry.
Okay, I had a couple of notes here. Some just minor ones maybe, but the 5% of sworn injuries and illnesses that resulted from training activities, how much of a deep dive do we go into that to figure out exactly what needs to be done differently? I'm assuming there is, because this is a report that's giving us stats, but I just wonder if there's a comment on that.
So yes, through the chair, Member Curry, every report that's submitted, there's an investigation that's conducted or carried out on it to see if there's any areas that can be improved upon. Any safety concerns that can be brought, any safety prevention pieces that can be brought in. What I can tell you, what many of those relate to in terms of training, is we do active defensive tactics training as part of our annual use of force requalification, and there's a number of injuries, although minimal and declining, that occur during that.
Okay, good to hear. I imagined that. The other question I have is, I found this interesting to see that, a psychological, so on page 149, 53 reports of psychological incidents occurs when a member is exposed to a psychological stressor. And then I think, but if you look above that, a contact occurs when a member strikes a person or object, or when a member is struck by, cut, scratched, or pinched by an object. I don't know, if somebody strikes someone else, you could imagine that would result in some kind of a psychological stressor, so I found sort of the lines between these quite blurred. If there's a motor vehicle accident, I think that would result in a psychological stressor, so that I just was wondering how it was that you can actually get data like this, because I sort of think almost 100% of these things could be psychological stressors.
So I would agree with that. There's likely intersectionality in all of these different categories. What we do is we actually have a health and safety expert who reviews them and properly categorize them as is set out by the criteria from WSIB to categorize them. So although there's likely work that can be done in that area, I can tell you we have a great team under Angela Slobodian that works hard on keeping these, tracking them, looking for trends to move ahead. So like any other data collection, there are challenges in its collection, but we do the best we can to categorize them so we can respond appropriately to them.
Okay. Thank you for that. A couple other things, I guess, on page 5 of this report, which is page 150, I guess I hate to just focus on the money, but if it's 1,645 hours per injury, that's 68.54 days, 2 months, really 8 weeks, where people are off. They needed time due to an injury or illness. That translates into quite a cost. That's what we talk about. Then you have to have another officer replacing that officer for potentially 2 months, 8 weeks, and that's on average. So, there's another page here, the next page 152, where you have that total direct costs of workplace injuries or illnesses, 13 million. Like 2021, 13 million, 2020, 10 million. That's a lot of money.
So sorry, Deputy Chief Bell, before you move on to respond, I highlighted the similar chart that Member Curry was looking at, but I looked at the FTEs lost, and that is quite a significant number. It's part of what Member Curry's scenario is asking, and my sort of question to that is the OPS kind of is it an issue relative to other police services? Is this kind of is this a similar situation happening elsewhere, and we're not out of the realm of what's taking place? Sorry, I interrupted you, Deputy Chief Bell, but I just wanted to add that while you're responding to Member Curry's question.
So we're not out of line with any other police service. And in fact, what I would say is we're actually not out of line with most sectors right now, where every sector is seeing an increase in long-term disability, some in WSIB areas. And you have to remember, police, like fire, have presumptive legislation around WSIB, very important legislation that we have to be able to protect our members who do an incredibly difficult job, that obviously is taking a toll on them. So we aren't out of line with the policing as a sector. And like I said, we're not even at a line with where society is trending towards overall from an employment perspective. Member Curry, what I can say is, yes, it's extremely costly. It's extremely impacting on the organization. And that's why Angela and her team spend so much time looking at how we can engage in prevention programs, looking at how we can keep people healthy, whole, and able to work. And when they need to leverage programs like this, we can make sure they have supports around them so that they can return as quickly as possible. So I know these numbers are challenging. That's why it's important for the board to see them, because this area has an absolute impact on us at this service, an impact on our staffing levels, and at some points an impact on our ability to deliver our policing service.
Yeah, I'm thankful that the two, well, more than 3 or 4 reports here today are all really indicating the same thing. We have to do better obviously for the people, and then when that translates into the cost. So I'm glad to see that we just had a report on some of the initiatives, and then and now we see, not that we didn't know before, but why. The other comment I was going to make is that on page 153. There's a chart there, table 6, contributing factors identified, and it said 79% no contributing factors identified. I wonder if there was another comment on that.
Angela, do you want to take that one?
Thank you, and I apologize for my issue from before. I am not John Steinbeck, so I'm otherwise known as Angela Slobodian. Yeah, contributing factors, Member Curry, that is something we need to work on. I think when we receive the injury on duty reports or the workplace injury illness incident forms, there's a hesitancy about, what are the contributing factors, but it often, we know that, especially if it is a mental health issue, physical, musculoskeletal injuries, there may be some hesitancy to understand what are the contributing factors for that individual, because it's the supervisor that's responding and often completing these forms. So they may not know what's contributing. There might be the obvious of, I slipped on, there was a wet spot on the floor and I fell, then we'd see that as, equipment or environmental. So there's work to be done there for sure to help our supervisors identify what are some contributing factors. But if I may, I know that, one thing that we do see reduced on page 6 on table 4 is the incident only. And there's a reduction in that number. And, we can kind of think about all these things that may contribute, but I really do believe one of those things that are contributing to that reduction in incident only is our supervisors and chains of command checking in with their folks. We're really encouraging that. And so rather than making a blanket statement that our, 5 officers went to a horrific scene and I'm filling out a form that may potentially develop into a WSIB claim, they're engaged with their folks, they're talking to their people, they're checking in on them. So I think that's one of those contributing factors to the reduction in that number. So it's all kind of, we have the workplace injury and illness incident form that starts that process for WSIB. And then we proceed from there.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that to me. I think there's some challenges there. I mean, again, like I asked on the last one, I hope that there are really deep dives into all of this, because the chart below that then indicates that corrective actions identified, no, 83% of the time. There's not a corrective action identified. So, that's how you would get at that, right? To figure out what actually caused it.
Correct. And like I said, with the, some of the straightforward ones that we understand, there may be, the corrective action may be more obvious. The corrective actions with relating to trauma, mental health claims, the corrective action isn't so obvious. That's where all the wellness programs that DC Bell talked about that our team is engaged with, that we're building, and chains of command are really embracing. Those are the types of corrective actions that are qualitative in nature that we may not be able to, put our finger right on, but they're qualitative in response. But there's always room for improvement for sure to build on understanding around what corrective actions mean.
Thank you. I just have one last thing to say, Vice Chair. I was very happy to see the wellness portal and just the whole paragraphs around that. That is, I think, a very important thing that will make a difference. The next time we see this report, I think the numbers will be better. That is a key thing. And then the early intervention program that resulted in 43% increase in the number of thresholds alerted over 2021. That I felt a lot better. I mean, the numbers are upsetting for sure, but there are things in place, and I do think the numbers will get better, but all the deep dives you can do into this, I think, will be better. And I think the chief may have a comment too.
Thank you, Member Curry. A couple of comments, a really good discussion. And to your comments, obviously this is very concerning, and I think the most concerning thing is the 105 FTEs, or the amount of members that we have off, and it's disappointing that we have that many that are injured and or sick. And it is financially incredible as well too, and we'd love to have them back in the office. I can tell you that the investment that is made, within the office, to increase our programs, to increase the people in disability management that can have more contact, as Angela says, more interactions, support our members more. It is great. That is a lot of positive investment, a lot of ROI to try to get our members back as soon as we can. So we certainly want to do more and more of that. On the other, it's a great number that you picked up in regards to the no contributing factors identified or corrective actions. And as I've seen too, when members have to, when I say, they're working, they have to respond to an incident, and they walk into a very concerning scene, traumatic scene, that exposure can be devastating to some members, and it's hard to correct that path because you don't know what you don't know sometimes when you're getting into it. So it is very difficult in our world to predict those sort of things. The last comment I'll make in terms of, and I think it was Vice Chair Fakarani's comment in terms of, is this in line with other police agencies and whatnot? Certainly can't speak for all of them. I know in my previous career, we saw a significant uptick of members that were off. Year over year, the number was growing and growing and growing. And I'm not, if you will, I'm concerned with these numbers, but I'm not surprised with them when I got here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Stubbs. Member Curry.
Sorry, I just have one more question. I know I'm not on the committee. Marty, I think, is, but the fire services, is there any chance that they know what we're doing here at OPS in terms of some of our initiatives here, and that we would share them with them? Because they have, paramedics, fire, ambulance, they have similar situations. I'm just wondering if they are aware of what we're doing.
Member Curry, I'm not sure if they are aware. Certainly sharing is an easy thing to do. I don't know if anyone wants to put their hand up if they do know, but I'll certainly check with, and John and or Angela might know.
Actually, thank you for raising that. This is, Ottawa is very unique. Pre-pandemic, we had a committee of the first responders group. It had a longer name than that, but it's a first responders group, paramedic, fire, police, as well as some folks from the city, psychologists, some other public safety personnel as a group, and we share our resources, ideas. For example, peer support team. We'll often, I know in this latest tragedy, our peer support folks were helping the paramedics as well. And so, yes, we're getting, as the email that went out, we're getting the band back together. And, so fire, paramedics, and police will all be at a table again, sharing resources and opportunities, because it's just the right thing to do. If you look at an organization like SIPCERT, which out of University of Regina, it's an excellent resource. And they talk about public safety personnel and very similar experiences. So how we can learn from one another is critical. And we're doing it here in Ottawa for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Member Carr.
Yeah, thanks. Member Curry, I just wanted to, were you talking about the Emergency Preparedness Committee? Yeah, so I'm not on that, but I'd be interested in knowing if there was any loop back to that committee. That's chaired by Councillor Brockington, I believe, but I know that they've discussed issues such as 911 and that sort of stuff. So if anyone knows if there's any connection there, that would be helpful, or I can check in with the chair as well myself.
Chief, did you want to respond, or Member Carr can check in with the committee chair?
Yeah, we certainly can.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that presentation. And I'll just say that the Ottawa Police Services Board received the Workplace Accidents and Injuries Annual Report 2022 for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Great, thank you. 8.18, Performance Report First Quarter 2023. Member Curry.
Can you tell I sat at the front of the class? Okay, so 95% of the time, 15 minutes. Priority 1. And then we have the rest of the report is all stats about how everything is higher. Criminal code offenses, everything. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all, but that's what we read in this report. I mean, I guess this is the kind of information that needs to be presented at some of our budget presentations. To wherever we go, and at the very end of the day at budget. So that is my general comment on this. You know, this, and given all the rest of the stuff that's been on this agenda, I mean, there's a lot of other things, but this one, it just sort of stuck with me that some of these statistics and data need to be presented more broadly. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Member Curry. I'm going to ask Member Carr to, and then I'll give an opportunity to Chief Stubbs to respond to that comment. But if Member Carr has a question, maybe we can take that now.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I had a comment, not dissimilar from Member Curry, just with respect to the statistics. I was really struck by a number of things, you know, that the total demand for service was nearly 40% higher than the 5-year average. The one thing that, and you know, and also the volume of police reported crime in the first quarter was risen by 7%. But one thing that I just wanted to ask some clarification on, there's a comment about the result being driven by calls that initially coded as emergency 911 activation assessment, and then finally they're false 911, no emergency identified. I wondered if you're able to speak to why there's this uptick in these 911 hangups. Like, is it related to cell phones? Like, does anyone have any information on that? I would just appreciate that. But I just want to echo Member Curry's comment on the value of these statistics. I was quite surprised to see the demand, but I'll let you answer my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Carr. I will ask Chief Stubbs or someone from his team if he could ask.
Thank you. Just for both questions, you know, the data, and even some of the data that John Steinbeck's team is developing, I think is going to paint the picture. We'll be able to tell our story a little bit better by Q4 to the public, and that's something, and that's why we want that forward-facing, public-facing, document website portal that will assist in telling our story a little bit better. There is no doubt that they are getting busier, and I'm, you know, being newer to the service, as I'm looking at these trends, I'm asking why as well too, and some of it is more obvious, and other times it is not. I think, you know, it's interesting, the 911 hangups, as we call it. Obviously, we saw a real spike in that in the last 5 or 10 years, as everybody has cell phones and everyone has them in their pockets and drops them and everything else. I don't quite know why there's all, I mean, phones aren't just coming on board. We've had them in our lives for a number of years now. So I'm not really sure why the latest spike has occurred. Deputy Ferguson, I know you have the comm center under you, and or Deputy Burnett might know as well too, but maybe I'll go to Trish first if you know the deep dive on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the reviews that we've done dives into our calls. I think as many as 20% have been false 911 calls. So a lot of it is the pocket dials, purse dials and things like that they're seeing. So there has definitely been an increase in that. The other thing is the technology. Apple Watches will detect if somebody has fallen and they automatically call 911. So that has had huge impacts on a number of services. And I've heard of a story of in Banff, the police station that's closest to the ski hill, when people are falling, their watch is dialing 911. So these are the kind of things that are impacting the numbers for sure.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that on the Apple Watch side of the house. Oh, interesting.
Member Carr.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick follow-up? Thank you for that. That's rather terrifying, to be honest, because I imagine that there's often resources that get deployed, or even the resource on the 911 is answering it when you're backing up the system. So that's relatively terrifying to me. My question is, I just wanted to understand if you've got a case where, I call 911 because I'm panicked and I think people are, through I don't know, teens fighting, something that's not 911. Does that get tracked as that immediately gets moved over to a non-emergency then? Like if the officer responds and it's not emergency, that stat would show as a false 911?
No, that would be a legit 911 call.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it would just be based on how the officers clear it. They would see that, it came in as a disturbance that, and a lot of it is in the eye of the beholder, the caller. What is their perception of the situation? It might be different for, a 6-foot guy than it would be for an older lady. Those types of things. It's all your perception on that. So that would come in as a legit 911 call. The false ones really are, kids playing with the phone and the drops. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that clarification.
I see Deputy Chief Burnett has his hand up.
Yeah, just to add on that, so the officer who's responding may get information around that call that it's not an emergency. So that will effectively impact the response time. So they may not be going lights and sirens to that, but they'll still go at a slower speed.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Any last minute comments on this item from Chief Stubbs?
I've done enough talking on this one. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So that the Ottawa Police Services Board received the performance report first quarter 2023 for information. Is this item received?
Received.
Thank you. So if I'm not mistaken, that was our last item for discussion. Is there any, Krista, sorry, she's going to correct me.
Sorry, could you just do the formal, read the recommendation for item 22? I know we addressed it during the chief's report.
Oh, sure. Letters of commendation.
Yes,
May
please.
23. Okay, that the Ottawa Police Services Board received the letters of commendation May 2023 for information. Is the information received?
Received.
Great, thank you. Anything else I've missed, Krista?
No, we'll just withdraw the chair's verbal report due to the technical difficulties.
Yeah, and I just wanted to close on that. I know the chair is very disappointed that she although she's online, she is traveling in Northern Canada, and the internet unfortunately was not viable enough to connect her properly. I know she did really want to participate in today's meeting and chair it. So apologies from the chair on that front. I will ask if there's any other business. Hearing none. Our next meeting will be held on Monday, June 26th. And can I please have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. It was a great meeting.